everyone, Joellen here, and welcome to Washington Watercolor. Well, for today's lesson, I thought it would be great to focus on atmospheric perspective, paint some sky, trees, water. This is a photograph from Ireland, and my friend and student Jack took this while he was traveling there and thought it would make a wonderful painting, and I agree. So today I'm going to draw this out. I may slightly change things around. We have this church that's kind of being obstructed by this tree, so I think I'll remove that tree, but I do like this tree over here. I don't know, let's just see where it goes. Let me just quickly draw this out. Next, I'm going to apply masking fluid, and in my hand I have a color shaper which has a silicone tip, so the masking will not stick to it. Okay, so my masking is completely dry, tacky to the touch, but none of it is coming off in my hand. While it was drying, I decided to lower the horizon and the hills a little bit. I really love the sky and the clouds, and I just didn't leave enough room for that, so I thought that that was important. Now I have my brushes, and in my other video, somebody had asked me what size brushes I use. So this one I really loved, and it is a Princeton Neptune quill, and it is a size 6, and I use this almost exclusively. It's pretty versatile. And then the others I like are Rosemary and Company. It's a Sabo Blend Series 104. This one is a size 14. Unfortunately, the other sizes have worn off. I'm going to guess that this one is a 10 to 12 and this one is a 6 to 8. So hopefully that is helpful. And then finally, the other brush that I really love to use is this Princeton Neptune Script. And unfortunately, it has received so much love that the size is worn off, but I can probably guess it's a size 2 maybe. So anyway, hopefully that will help you out. So all right, let's get going here. Grab some water. So the first thing I want to do is I want to wet my sky area. So I'll just come in and wet right down to the rolling hills here, all the way across. Now stop at the trees. Maybe I'll bring this down just a little bit here. Okay. Sky is pretty wet. There we go. Okay. Next, I am going to pick up some of my Windsor Blue green shade. And it really is one of my favorite colors for skies. It's beautiful, has a nice jeweled looking effect or color. And I'll just kind of tap this in, and I want to leave spots, places where I feel the clouds are. We'll just go all the way over with this. There we go, just like so. And I think that will look really pretty. And that's one of the things I love about Ireland or this picture, just how intense the blues and greens are. Now I'm going to rinse off my brush, wipe some of it off, and just push it along. I want the blue to be a little bit lighter as it approaches the horizon. We'll bring this right over to the edge of the church roof. Okay, well, that started to look really nice. Now, I am going to pick up some of my Windsor lemon, tap some off, and some of the areas where I have put some masking for leaves. Just going to tap a little bit of that in. And it's important to do this while everything is wet because the yellow will push the blue away and you'll get this really nice soft effect. But again, you have to work pretty quickly when you're painting in watercolor. And if you're too slow with this, you could end up with a blossom or a bloom. That looks nice. Put some over here. Pick up some burnt sienna in there. Take off some water. See a little bit of rust going on in the leaves. And it doesn't have to be perfect or match what you see exactly, as long as we have this kind of nice indication going on. I think that will look nice. Good. And I'll use this just to lift out a few spots. And I'll grab some of my Caroline green. And again, take off a little bit. Maybe a smidge too dark, but let's just see. Mm, I think that looks good. We can add more of the darks later on. Okay. Now we have a few clouds to contend with, and take, oops, I'm going to take a damp paper towel, not a wet paper towel, but a damp paper towel. And let's just see if we can just stamp the paper and lift off some of the blue to get a nice indication of clouds. think that's looking good. Scrub that edge just a little bit. Look at how pretty that looks. Okay, I think we're good. Sometimes in watercolor, you have to quit while you're ahead, right? And because that last little mark just does you in. All right, so now I'm going to focus on the rolling hills here. This is white paper. I can always come back in later on and fill it in, but let's just get an indication of something happening in the back hills. Now, I'm going to come in with a smaller brush, which is my rosemary, and I'll pick up some of my lemon yellow again. Now, lemon yellow is, or Windsor lemon, I should say, is a cold yellow, and it will really set back. A bit more water. Let's just go over the hill and we'll just fill it in. Okay, there we go. Now to that, let's just add some other colors. I'll pick up some of my perylene green. I'm going to grab some sap green too. And those are the colors I'll be using for this. And let's just, I'll dot in just some of the markings that I see of the land. I really love when there's this kind of patchwork going on the land. I think it's so pretty. And I don't 100% see this. I'm kind of making this up based on past experience. And we'll just start to bring that over there. I'm going to grab some of that burnt sienna and just drag it through. Now I really want this background to be light, and I want it just to push back into space. Here, I think that's looking really nice. Let's get some of that sap green. And then finally, we'll go back to our perylene green. Tap some off. And just think about some of the trees and bushes that we're seeing more in the foreground here. Okay, it's not bad. And we can always add more later on. But again, less is always more. Quit while you're ahead, all those good things in watercolor. When I get to the other side, right here, I see that as being a lot darker. So I'm first going to just jump into some perylene. I'll water it out. And let's just add value. I want a dark value right there. And we'll just bring that up just a little bit. From there, I'm going to grab some burnt sienna. And I just like to let this really paint itself. And by that I mean I like to have the colors really mixed together. And bring this right up next to that tree, just like that. And I'll get something over this side eventually too. Well, maybe I'll do it now, just so there's some balance. That'll look nice. Okay, now over here, I can go back to my lighter green and yellow and dot in some of those distant trees. Good. And whatever's here, we should just carry it through. I'm going to grab, I do see a little bit of orange and it pokes into the side, but I do see a carry on to the other side. So we might as well just carry that right behind. And okay, we'll contend with some of that later on, but I just want to get a little bit of a shape put in here. There. All right. Now, before we get over here to the water, there is what seems to be a fence over here. I'm ignoring that. There are some trees. So I think what I'm going to do is try to lift out a couple of those whitish looking trees over here. And to do that, I have, you could use a credit card, you could use something that's flat, and you want to scrape the paint. But this has to be almost dry. It can't be dry because nothing will happen. And if it's too wet, what will happen is the paint will just fill in the channel. And what I really want to do is just take and scrape out some of the paint in order to achieve maybe some of those smaller white tree trunks that we're seeing. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to scrape along. And this is pretty dull looking right now, not too shiny, so I think it should work. Let's just see if we can. Nope, not quite working yet, a little bit. But as you can see, it's, oh, there we go, scribing in. It's always, just pushing and wiping, pushing and wiping. Okay, that's nice. Creating some of those little lighter areas. We'll try over here. I think over here it's a little bit too wet, so it's not going to work the same way, but I feel over here it's looking pretty good. We'll give this a little bit of time, let it set up over here, and then I'll do the same thing again. Okay, so this has started to set up now, and I've tried it a few times. I made some darker trunks, which is okay too. But I feel like it's ready now. And let's just see if there we go. Okay. And we'll just pull some some out, and I feel like that's really nice and adds a little sense of depth to that area. So now we have a couple of things we have to work with, and we have the water that we want to get in, and we also have the land that is right here. So let's just see what we're going to do first. I'm going to move back to my bigger brush, and I feel I'm going to get a wash in for the land first, and then I'll get a wash in for the water. And I guess it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen of another for me. I'm going to pick up some of my lemon yellow again, and I want to have a fair amount of water. I mean, this is a pretty big area, so let's see what we can do. I also, if I'm over here, want to make sure this is fairly dry, because if it's not dry, I'll get a blossom. I feel it's good. So let's just start with our yellow, and we'll just put a layer of this all the way over. It does kind of move into a rust color. I have my little person. I want to avoid the person, and we'll start to bring it all the way over and beyond. And I know this changes color. We'll be dropping in a lot more color as we're going along, but I just want to get a base wash or base yellow put in. I have some cadmium yellow here, and unfortunately I think I have got other things put into it, but it is a warmer yellow, and I'll just start to drop some of this in, and I'm going to come right around this area, grab some of my sap green, and really pretty. Let's just get this right up to the edge that we have here, nice and tight. And we'll get a lot more of our green put into this area that's here. And that's looking good. And we want our foreground to be darker than what is by the church in our background. Now, I'm going to grab some Prussian blue, and even in the foreground that's here, we'll just start to add some of that blue in. And we have this nice dappled light going on. So little patches here and there, and then even some longer shadows going on. I feel like that's looking pretty good. I'm going to soften the edge. I don't really want any hard edges yet. And I can come back into that mixture I had of my Windsor orange and just touch some in. Landscape can be really tricky. It's a lot. We're juggling the color and shapes and values and all kinds of stuff. I want to get this little level. And go. And we'll lift. Can push and lift a little bit right there. Okay. Now, into this, I'll just get some of that perylene green going, and and maybe just push a little bit of the darks that I'm seeing. So when you get the foreground darker, what happens is it really pushes everything back in space. There we go. Oops, yep. I wanted that to be just softened with a clean brush, but that's okay. We'll be jumping into that water shortly. You know, I very rarely change my water, but this is telling me it's a good opportunity to go and change my water. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Okay, so hold on, we're going to let this dry up and I'm going to change my water. Okay, so everything is mostly dry and it's time to paint the water. And for the water, I'm going to be using a combination of colors. I'll use some of my Prussian blue, I'll use a little bit of my ultramarine blue, and I feel that will be really nice. I'll still go back to my big brush. Really love using a big brush. And all right, so let's see what we're going to do here. I'm going to grab a little bit of my ultramarine, and I see this more in the foreground. We'll get some of that going. Then we'll grab some Prussian, and that will be really beautiful too. Okay. Take a little bit off. I want to leave a slight space. So let's see. Leave a little bit of a white line, just like that. Okay. We'll rinse this off, tap it. We'll start to bring this down where this can get a little bit lighter. And we'll continue to work our way down. We can grab some more of that Prussian as we're coming down into this area. And then I'll grab some of my ultramarine blue and we'll switch. A lot of foliage that happens here, but we want this to be pretty dark. We'll come back to working that. But a couple of things. Let's just lift a little bit out, like so. Maybe we'll lift some out here. I'd like that shape to be, that edge to be softened just a little bit more. I'll be adding stuff over there. Not too worried. And then even the foreground, I'm going to grab some neutral tint because the water in this area just does get really dark. Some more blue, put in there. I'll go back to that was some Windsor blue. Get a nice combination of all of these things. Nice. I'll pick up some burnt sienna and just along the edge. Add a little bit. And then over here, and add some greens. We can add more burnt sienna. That looks pretty good. And maybe some more of my perylene, just to create some of the with watercolor, you have to have eyes and back of your head, because as I'm working down there, this line is just doing its own crazy thing. And just like with the clouds, maybe we'll just sweep a little bit out. And just like with the clouds, we can kind of take some paper towel and just drag it along. I feel like that's looking pretty good. Now, I'm going to move to a really small brush, and I'll grab some of my perylene green. Make sure I have water taken off. And then even in here, I can work up some of these grasses, tall grasses that we're seeing. And it should hold a nice soft shape. And let's take some off here. I'm going to braid this. Maybe there are a few blades of grass that we're seeing. I'm just lifting out a little bit in this area. Then I can come back in later on and add more to it. I think that will look nice. Over here, there is a little path happening, and I did not notice it earlier, so I will lift something out, an indication for a little path. And even over here, I'll just soften that edge. Much prettier. Look at that. Huge difference. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll start to just work on the foreground more. Come through with pretty color like that. And any place where I see possibly there's a cast shadow from some other trees happening, I'll try to pull some of those shadows across the way and just soften it a little bit. And here we'll just try to mold some of the little bushes and plants that we see. And let's get something darker. And over here, there's a darkness. There's a shrub that works its way over. And then on top, it catches some light, and on the side. Good. And then where we had this little path, I'll just come through on one side and darken the edge. I think that will make sense. And even the figure, just get darker green, even though we haven't put in the figure yet. But the figure will have some type of little shadow happening. I'm going to grab some of my burnt sienna, and it's okay if it mixes into the blue. It will just make it a darker, deeper brown. And I'll get a few of these places here where we feel the tall grass has these darker pockets. And we'll mix our burnt sienna with something a little bit lighter. And push those up. Again, it's an interpretation, so it does not have to be 100% perfect. That's pretty dark right there. Then I'm going to grab some of that quinacridone gold and we'll add some yellowy bits. And just carry it all up on this side. Okay. At this point, I think what I'm going to do at this point, I will pick up more of my Prussian blue, add some yellow to it, and let's just see if we can get this foreground even a little darker. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to dry this and take my masking off, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so let's just remove all of our masking. Okay, let's continue with this. And I think at this point, I am going to fill in the tree. So a nice combination that I like to use, burnt sienna. We'll pick some of that up. Great. And then ultramarine blue. And we'll mix that together and we'll get either a dark brown, or we can push it gray, we can push it a little bit lighter. And for now, I'm going to keep this fairly watery, and I'll just come through and fill in the tree. And we just want to get light color put in here, and if possible, I just want to work as fast as I can. And there may be a break or two where some of these leaves will come in front of the branches. I feel like that's off to a good start. So now, when I look at my reference, I feel like there's more orange or red. So I'll come into this wet channel and add a little bit of my burnt sienna. I can also come up to some places here and add that burnt sienna as well. And I'll just let it kind of move and flow on its own. Let's pick up ultramarine blue. And there are some places I feel pick up a little bit more gray. I do like that burnt sienna though. I feel like that looks really good. Okay, and maybe getting some thicker, less watered paint at the base. Maybe we could get that darker. We'll soften this just some. I think I'm going to grab some, I grabbed neutral tint, wrong. I'm going to grab some of my sepia here, and we'll continue just to darken the base and darken one side, the left side. We just want this to stand out compared to our background. Overall, I feel like that's nice. I might even add just a touch of my green into places too. Here we go. It's got some nice character. I might grab some of my Windsor yellow And I have all these little spots. I'll come back in and see if I can fill those in. We'll just work our way over here. We'll grab a bit more green. I'll just let these kind of spread on their own. I like that. And let's go back into that mixture I had. I had some burnt sienna and with some ultramarine blue, and I'll come in and paint the stonework of the church. There's this beautiful stone archway, and I want to avoid that. And again, we'll come right around. I want to keep the rooftop nice and straight and light. I don't want to go out of line there. Okay, now I'll grab some of my ultramarine blue, and while this is wet, I can just touch it into places and I'll let it mix on its own. And hopefully it will look a bit like stone. I like that. Good. And then within the arch, you can see there's some details going on there. I'll just put this curve in for now. Okay. And you can decide if you want to give this a little bit more character and define some of the separations going on with the stones, but I feel for me that's pretty good. I like what's happening there. So I'm going to get my orange and let's grab a bit of orange. And I feel like the orange of the door is somewhat pumpkin. So if it's mixing with some of my kind of dirty colors, I'm okay with that. And let's tap off some water. Now I have a person I put in here, and I do want to avoid the figure. So we'll go around. We'll go around the figure best we can. That looks good. Let me pick up some of that brown just to put it into that top edge. And now I want that to dry up so we can get more details put in. Okay, so this is drying and this is drying. So we do have some of the grass that we have over here. Let's come in with, I have this yellowish mixture here. And again, I think it's my green mixing with some orange mixed with some yellow. And it's giving me this kind of nice mustard color. And though these are a little wide, I'll just fill these in best I can. So those start to blend, and you can be a little bit more careful. I'll pick up some of my green, and look at this. Oh boy, it's a lot to fill in. So I guess patience is the word of the day. We'll do our best just to fill in some of these blades of grass. Once it gets all filled in, it looks rather nice. We'll just keep pushing on. It's nice having these pointed round brushes. They're really so versatile. I like that. I think I'll grab some burnt sienna and just go into the bottoms and give them a little bit more darkness. Yeah, that's looking good. Good. And you can definitely decide how much grass you want to put in here, and if you want to indicate some blades right in the foreground, really up to you. Let's grab some neutral tint. And I think I'll put that brush down for now, and I'll pick up my smaller brush. A couple of things going on here. With a small brush, I'll just outline this area right here where the rooftop is meeting the building. We'll get both sides. That will really show off that edge. There is an opening here. The door is open. I'll put a line going through. And in my drawing, I don't really see it passing all the way through because there's a figure in between. But on this side of the door, I'll come through and just get it a bit darker and maybe soften it. The door is open by a crack, and we really want to be able to see that. Grabbing a little bit more of a darker value, I'll just create that arch there. I'll grab just some of that. This is my neutral tint, and it's mixing with some burnt sienna. Maybe I'll put some blue in there, which leaning gray, but more blue-gray, and tap some off. And, ooh, boy, there we go, much better. I want to give this an edge, just like that. And we'll give this an edge. Good. And there is a cross right up at the top. So we'll add that little detail right there. Good. Oh, it's getting there. I'll take some more of my blue, grab some off, some water off on my paper towel, and add this nice cast shadow from the overhang of the roof. Okay. So that's not too bad. To the side of the arch, I'll add a shadow here as well. So this is really our focal point, and it really looks good. I feel like it's jumping right out at us. Okay. I might even get some burnt sienna. Good. All right. I like how that's looking. I feel like that's fairly dry, and you can decide how much detail you want to put into this area. But let's put in the figure now. And figures can be really challenging, and sometimes figures can be intimidating. The figure itself is catching some light. So let's first get maybe some of our brown mixed up. Take some water off. And I'm not trying to put in exactly what I see in the photograph, but I just want to indicate that this is some type of person. And I want to leave a little edge of light. And maybe I'll add something that could be a flesh tone. I'll come back in and add some brown at the top, something a little bit darker. This is where we have to have a really good imagination, right? I'm going to grab some blue, and we'll let some blue flow in there, almost like they have a blue shirt on, maybe even some black, but not too dark for indicating some jeans. But just like we did with the tree, this is an area where I just want the paint to kind of flow one color into the next, and let the viewer really kind of fill in with their imagination what may be going on there, what the person would look like. All we have to do is indicate, and I think that looks pretty good. We just have a person, and that looks fine for me. So with that, a few more details. I'll pick my brush up again, and I want to come through with something that is fairly dark. Get some of my green mixed with some neutral tint, and to one side, I just want to make that darker here. I feel like that will really set the church off. And the same thing on this side. Just try to push some of those darks. We'll come through and add a few touches of dark right at the base. And maybe with a damp brush, just push things up just a little bit. And water this out a little bit more. Grab a little bit of burnt sienna into that mixture. And I do feel over here that there are some darker trees, but not too dark, just enough to give that area a little bit of excitement. And we'll just soften this and push that away. So I feel like those distant rolling hills are there and hopefully working. Maybe I feel like that's looking good. Um, okay. I think this project is, it's a lot. It's endless, right? There's so many things you can keep adding and adding to it. And at some point we have to say, oh, that's it. And we're getting close to that point. Noticing I didn't fill those in. Some leaves there. I think overall it's pretty good. And so at this point, I will grab something that is a darkish color or value. And let's just sign. Perfect. And now let us take the tape off. And there we are. Yay. I think it looks great. So I hope you really enjoyed this. And please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. If there are other subjects you'd like to see, please let me know. Thanks for watching and have a great day.